Hey gang, it's AZ. Welcome to episode 110 and
109. She actually means 109.
And crossing my fingers, I'm recording a lot of episodes in advance. So by the time this episode drops, I should be settled into my new house in Oklahoma, getting ready to start grad school. Whew. Okay, that's announcement number one. Announcement number two, make sure you click the link in the show notes to get registered for 7-Minute Science. And finally, without further ado, I got to sit down today and speak with Dr. Christle Guevarra. She has a Master's of Science in Chemistry and is a Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. I met Dr. Christle at the NSCA Great Lakes Conference in April. She's amazing, so entertaining, so much fun. And currently, she maintains a telemedicine private medical practice, serves as a traveling team physician for U.S. figure skating, and as a project manager for RP Strength. And my question is, Dr. Christle, what do you do in your free time? Just kidding. Without further ado, let's hear from Dr. Christle. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. So, as we were saying before we hit record, you, Dr. Christle, have already had a really busy day. What's going on?
We're building a couple of things downstairs with the YouTube department. So we're building a new podcast sort of setup. So furniture has been arriving and lighting and painting and, just trying to create some new stuff. So I'm really excited about what's in store for us this upcoming year.
Well, and you just said words that are completely not in my vocabulary. YouTube department. Okay, let's just go down the rabbit hole. Tell me, what the heck? What are you doing?
Oh gosh. So I definitely I work for RP, and this year just YouTube has sort of grown quite a bit. They hit about 1 million followers, I think around New Year's or a little bit before that. And so, my husband and Scott, the video guy, have been kind of this two-man team for a really long time and have really done really great things for themselves. Just with everything sort of expanding, I think they sort of brought me in as to kind of help organize things and sort of help rein it all in so they can get to what they do best, which is, filming, and then my husband, yapping in front of the camera. So I do a lot of stuff on the back end, which actually really excites me. I think it's actually super important and super great to keep things organized and make sure that there is a process for everything. So everybody's on the same page and there's no, miscommunication or missed opportunities. So I love it. I actually really, and it's a nice step away from, unfortunately, clinical medicine, but I do things about, what I really enjoy about it is I still get to talk to a lot of people. I actually talk to, about as many people, communicating face to face or over Zoom than I do in clinical practice. And I also get to stay really organized, which is what I loved about at least my electronic medical record. I loved keeping it organized. I had a system that I loved. This is how I organize things. And so, when a patient comes in, it's I already know, boom, boom, boom. Everything is kind of where I want it seen. So I can actually focus on talking to the person in front of me.
Well, and I love to stay super organized too, but I'm already getting unorganized. But I want you to tell, just in case there's one person in the tens of hundreds of whatever people that are going to listen to this, what RP is, in case they don't know.
So RP is a fitness and fitness. overall online fitness company. And so they make a lot of digital products, a lot of ebooks, a lot of putting out a lot of information on how, how to, eat, how to train so you can, live your best life. If you are a competitive athlete, that's awesome too. So I just, whether it is you're just starting out or you are, a high level athlete, there's a little bit of something for everybody.
Amazing. All right, back on track. Listeners, I got to meet Dr. Christle recently at the NSCA Great Lakes Conference. She and a colleague did just an outstanding presentation. I really loved it. And so, of course, then I got to get her on the podcast. But I always have my guests introduce themselves by answering 3 questions. So the first question, are you ready?
Yes.
Who is Dr. Christle?
Oh man, a whole lot of things. A physician, a project manager, a person who has always sort of struggled with eating right and eating and training. And so I always just felt like I was navigating that throughout my entire, childhood and adult life. And so I finally have sort of hit, kind of where I want to be. And I want to make sure that I share those kinds of key things that I've picked up along the way, because I know, especially with kind of the fitness industry, gets a bad rap a lot, and I want to make sure that I can at least make kind of help one person navigate their own journey through health and wellness. Without feeling sort of lost, because I know what it's like to feel lost and feeling like a little hopeless. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that is really common. I don't think many people would admit that, but I think it's super common. So, yeah, thank you for that transparency. Next question. What sets your soul on fire?
Working well with a team and doing great projects that are very meaningful to me. So, in the sense that, being on a really awesome, team and being able to contribute to that, I think, in the last couple of years has really been what has, really motivated me to go along, because I've been on a lot of teams that haven't worked out so well. And that can be crushing. You don't want to go into work. It sucks. It's just a grind. It's just a paycheck, and it comes out in your productivity. So to be really blessed to work with such an awesome group of coworkers at RP has really been a huge net positive to my everyday life. And being able to work on projects that help educate the general public about what is reasonable, what is reasonable, what is unreasonable, what's new, what's going on with fitness overall, really just provides meaning to me, especially from my previous history.
Outstanding. And I think you answered it a little bit already, but how are you changing the world?
I think it is through that, but all being able to provide that, but in my own, you can still do meaningful things and not necessarily have to be the face of, have to be an influencer, or I have to be on YouTube, or, you can share things about yourself, but you don't have to constantly, feel like, oh, I have to, do a photo shoot and wear a bikini, or compete in, on stage doing a bodybuilding show. You can do all those types of things and, keep things organized, and, use things like linear and setting meetings and, sending emails to people. Like, even those little things just seems small, but knowing what the bigger picture is, it's always in the back of my mind as I'm doing these little tasks. And that's what makes, working at RP such a great place to work. It doesn't feel like work to me, to be honest.
Oh, I am now retired. It also doesn't feel like work. Just kidding. You said a word. I did not feed this to you, but you said a word. I'm so excited that you said it. You said influencers. And I'm going to set this up for you.
Oh gosh.
My friend, Dr. Rachel Pajednik says, we can't totally, I'm paraphrasing this, we
Okay.
can't totally crap on the influencers because in the absence of information, they're going to fill in the blanks. So she says that the PhDs and the medical doctors and the people with true knowledge need to be better at pushing out the information. And this is clearly something that you do well. So
Oh.
tell me more. Tell me more.
Oh wow. I completely agree with that 100%. It's hard, I guess, from the medicine side of things, from day one of med school, you get the social media talk, and how it's pretty, at least 10 years, 12 years ago, I'm really dating myself. Day one, it's social media is pretty toxic. Don't post anything. Everybody hid their accounts. Because they didn't want people to find out who they were, and like really hiding themselves from social media in general. And so I get it. Obviously you don't want to have pictures of yourself, like, chugging a beer, like bong, or, doing something illegal. But, posting pictures of yourself exercising, posting pictures, this is me eating, I don't know, doing something or whatever. I feel like people have moved to the extreme of not posting anything, because I have also seen people getting into trouble under the guise of professionalism. It has been a tricky water to navigate, but I think especially now with TikTok, you can't do that anymore. It's really hard to stay off of social media, and I think we need to do better about educating our med students and residents about what is good information, what is bad information, because I now see that medical societies are trying to really, kind of play the social media game. And it just, as somebody who has been a part of social media for a while, and has been in the working in the marketing department every now and again, I see the stuff, and it's just like, low engagement. Infographics are like, 10-point font with like all this information. Like, nobody's gonna read this.
Yes.
Like, this great information, but no one's gonna read this. Like, I don't know who your target audience is, but I can't read. Like, how am I supposed to like this if I can't even read it? So yeah, even at one point I was a fellow, and I wanted to give a talk, and during COVID, about PCOS, which is a condition that I felt pretty well versed in. I'm family medicine by trade. This was going to be very basic information, and my program director just straight up tried to ban me from giving a talk, because she was afraid of whatever, potentially getting sued, or, some blowback. She's like, I have to check it with legal. And I was in an academic institution, and needless to say, I did it anyway, and I just didn't tell her. And whatever money I made from it, I donated to charity. So if it really got back to her, like for some reason got back to her, and she like came at me with, you shouldn't have done that. We can, do whatever. It's like, do you want me to, it's going to look really bad on you if you decided to take, pull the money from charity, and made me give it back to somebody. I don't know. Like, I just, I was so frustrated by that. Like, saying that, things that I do in my off hours are, up for grabs, because basically, quote, the state owns me, unquote. It's ridiculous.
So frustrating. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need more people giving good information. Otherwise, we can't crap on the influencers. So
We can't.
they're filling a gap. It's like water.
Mhm.
They're filling gaps.
Mhm.
Christle, you are a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of osteopathic medicine, but I have a feeling some of the listeners may not even know what that means. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, osteopathic. So, there are two ways to becoming a physician in the United States. It's different at other places. So, you can either get an MD, which is a medical, a medical degree, and the other route is getting a DO or a Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine here in the United States. So, long story short, we can get into the nuances of what the philosophy that DOs have had, the history, which is, just a huge rabbit hole. But we have the same training. We have the exact same training. A big difference that, at least on paper, sort of distinguishes us is we do have the mandatory extra 200 hours of osteopathic manipulative therapy training, so hands-on. So a lot of the techniques that we learn, it's a lot of overlap with chiropractors, a lot of overlap with physical therapists, a lot of overlap with massage therapists. The approach is different. The diagnosis is a little bit different. When we quote crack necks, it is a lot more nuanced and a lot less force than I've seen a lot of chiropractors typically use. So, but I think if you're thinking about real similarities, that's the biggest kind of thing that I can kind of, when I explain to general public people about kind of the similarities of what it is that we learn.
And I believe I'm taking a leap here, but I believe that probably influences greatly your approach to things, and therefore the presentation that you gave with Lincoln Merrick. And so tell me a little bit about one of the things that first responders suffer from a lot is pain in the absence of injury. And you were talking about pain versus injury. So let's dig into that.
Right. With pain is really kind of the body's way of protecting itself from, pain is this unpleasant experience that people have. So you can have an injury, you may not have an injury, but it's real. Whether or not it's caused by somebody taking a baseball bat to your knee, or I have like a lot of life things going on right now, and I am having, experiencing a lot of what feels to be pain. So I think the big thing, and I remember you talking about, about the experiences of firefighters at that conference, and I really super happy that I stayed, because I was just like, yes, we have to acknowledge that this exists. It exists. You're not making it up. It's not in your head. Like, this is a real thing. And we need to get to the bottom of it, because for a lot of people, it's not just a clear cut case of like, oh, I sprained my ankle. It's, 6 to 8 weeks. Like, it'll be okay. Here's your rehab exercises. All right. Have a nice day. For a lot of people who struggle with, chronic pain, it's let's look at your lifestyle, let's look at what your support system is like, what are you what's your day-to-day activities like, and really kind of going from there and having those long conversations, over periods of months, years, and just kind of slowly chipping away at it, is, for some people, that's the approach that I've always taken.
So, listeners, I want to be clear here. Dr. Christle is a doctor, but we are not giving medical advice here. We're having sort of philosophical conversations. And if you're willing to go here, I would love to talk about, here's the challenge that public safety has. We work within a workers' comp system. And so we can just acknowledge that whole thing sucks. But let's just say I am a firefighter. I wake up in the morning at the firehouse and my neck is it's in so much pain. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a fire yesterday. Maybe I didn't, but I've woken up at work in this tremendous amount of pain. Now we have to report this as a quote unquote injury.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then we run the risk of maybe it's something big and we didn't report it. So we get into this sort of big, scary tornado situation of I have pain, and because I reported it, now it's an injury. Yeah. So yeah, it's such a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But
Oh, great.
let me tell you what I tell people, and then you can poo-poo it. You might poo-poo it,
Okay.
but I say,
Okay.
in the absence of a traumatic injury, so in the absence of someone taking a baseball bat to your knee, if you wake up in the morning and your knee is sore,
Yeah.
it's more than likely not an actual injury. Is that even?
I think there's definitely some, I'm not gonna poo-poo on that. I think that's pretty reasonable, or pretty reasonable approach, especially if you kind of ask them what they did the day before. But usually for an acute injury, like it's usually something's gonna happen like around the time of injury.
Yeah.
If somebody has pain the next day, they might have overdone it, but it's not necessarily like this is what caused it for sure. So
Yeah. It's just because you can't really do the wait and see, because you have to report the injury. It's so frustrating to me.
yeah.
And I think it sets us as the first responder up for ultimate failure, I think.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the workers' comp system?
Not, I'm not super familiar with it. The times that I've had to do paperwork for workers' comp have been far and few between, and it's just sort of been extensive. That's the only thing I really remember from it, was just how extensive the paperwork was. So I don't deal too much with workers' comp, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Well, it usually goes like this. I hurt my back at a fire, or I was at a fire and I wake up the morning with hurt back the next morning. So then I get sent to the corporate health, where they prescribe muscle relaxers and pain relievers. And then usually you come back in 2 to 3 weeks and you're still in pain. So then they say, let's do some physical therapy. So then you do that for quite a long time, and you come back and you're still in pain. So there's really not, usually up to about 6 months, there's really no diagnoses. And it gets so frustrating for people. So what I really want to dig into is what you and Lincoln talked about, which is training around pain.
Yeah.
So let's leave the injury at the firehouse now. We're done with that.
Okay.
Let's say I'm on vacation for 6 weeks, and my knee's just been it's been kind of hurting me. Train around it. Tell me more.
Oh yeah. What I guess the other thing is, what does the person do? Have they trained before? Like, are like, what kind of activity level are we kind of working with here? Are these people looking to like, they've never stepped foot in, like, have they picked up a weight before? Are they looking to get, like, now's a perfect time for me to get in shape now and start like exercising on a consistent basis? um you know um and then also, what are your goals? Like, are you middle-aged, look male, looking to you kind of put on a little bit of weight, and you're looking to lose like 10 pounds or so? Are we just trying to, like, I guess, trying to figure out what the goal is? Is always the first thing. Like, what's going to motivate you? What's going to motivate you externally? Because a lot of times it's the most popular thing, but what's also going to motivate you internally? Like, do you want to be around for your kids, your grandkids? Do you want to stay active? Do you want to make sure that you're decreasing your risk of injury? Because I know firefight, handling that heavy equipment, all of that's super physically demanding. And so is that making those tasks easier? Is that kind of what's going to motivate you, before we can really think about where do we go from there? With the knee, you have an entire upper body that seems that seems pretty pretty spry, as far as I can tell, unless you're going to throw me a curveball. And I know a lot of people like to train upper body. So, and it's also going to be super helpful at work. So, hey, like, okay, your knee's not feeling so great. We can leave it alone, but you still have like the waist up. We can work on your chest. We can work on your back. We can work on your biceps and your triceps. And like all of that is great place to start.
So listeners, she said some wonderful things that I love to hear, which is it depends. And I know it's so frustrating to hear it depends, but dude, it depends. But also training around the injury is amazing. And so Dr. Christle mentioned we have an entire upper body, but we also have an entire other side of our lower body.
Yeah, we do.
Talk about that training effect that we can get from training the other side.
Right. So you can still, you're not going to, I guess sometimes people are worried about like, oh, if I continue training the other side, but then like leave this knee alone, am I going to, like my injured leg going to wither away? Really, no, it'll catch up. I promise you. I've seen people recover from ACL surgery who continued to train the other leg, and after a year their legs look the same. This happened. I've seen this happen before with bodybuilder. I know that that's like a big concern for people, but you can get the other leg stronger. You can also work around the actual knee and see what exercises make that pain worse. So we don't have to leave the knee alone. If you're, the person is okay with it, we can actually test it out and see what is not going to aggravate the knee, but something that is actually reasonable. Because believe me, I've had people come in for like, oh, my knee hurts. And then they squat down and you realize their stance is just sort of way too narrow for their frame. Put their, have them stand it with their feet shoulder width apart versus like right next to each other and have them squat down, and boom, and automatically like you seem like the smartest person in the room for even suggesting that, and now they can squat with no knee pain. So
after a brief technical difficulty, Dr. Christle and I are back. How dramatic. And what we were talking about was, you have a whole ass upper body you can train when your knee's owie. And I had just dropped the bomb on her, like, what about training the other side of the body? Mm-hmm. Can you repeat all that wonderful information you gave us?
Oh, for sure. Just because unless your knee isn't an immobilizer, you still have one, you could train the other leg. You can do a lot of unilateral stuff, and it's okay. Your leg, once your knee gets back to normal, you're not going to be stuck with this asymmetry going on. Cause I know some people are afraid like, oh, if I overtrain this leg and my injured leg, like I can't train it. Like I'm going to have one big leg and like one chicken leg. Not going to happen. Your body is capable of catching up to it. So I've seen people with ACL repairs continue to train the one side that's unaffected, and a year, 2 years, you actually can't see the difference. So it's okay, you can do that, but also you still have that knee, and we haven't even talked about what is it, all exercises that you are unable to do? Are you able to do some exercises with that knee? Just because the knee is happening, you still have the leg that can move in all different directions. You have a hip, you have an ankle, so when we talk about knee pain, you can still do stuff. And also, what is it about the knee pain and what exercises exacerbate it? Because I've also had people who tell me they have knee pain, and when I see them squat, their stance is just completely not the most ideal for their proportions. So even a very small adjustment, such as widen your stance, has led to such drastic results. And then you end up looking like this wizard of all knowing things. And you send them back on their merry way, like, hey, strength and conditioning coach, they're good to go. Just make sure they don't squat too narrow, and all is well.
So I think we could sum that all up with, you can work around this stuff. Don't give up just because one knee, one ankle, or one shoulder hurts. We can still work.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you. You mentioned in your intro that you had previously struggled with some eating and with some training motivation, and you sort of found your way out of that. Can
Yeah.
you talk to the listeners about that?
Oh, yeah. Gosh. Do you have another hour? No, I'm just kidding.
You go, girl. You got the mic. I'm going to mute myself because the airplanes are circling.
Yeah, I just always had a really big appetite growing up from the time I, could like 2 or 3, comparing myself to my next door neighbor who we were about the same height. I'm 4'11. She's about like 5 feet. And I'm, moved in when I was 2, and I always noticed she was about 20 pounds lighter than me, and just her appetite was just naturally less than mine. And I just remember that from an early age, where, part of the clean plate club of the 80s, always like the ideal kid because she, Crystal always finishes her plate. And so anytime I tried to like diet back in the 80s and 90s, it just didn't really, like, my hunger signals were completely out of control. Like, it just seemed like it was a huge struggle. But I love to do sports. I love to stay active. And so I continued to try and navigate just being an athlete and trying to do exercise consistently and not really worrying about dieting in the sense of I'm going to purposely bring down my calories so I can get leaner. So it was always kind of, when I finally graduated from undergrad, I was about 4'11, 198 pounds. I was a smoker at that point. I sort of let myself go in college because I thought it was a trade off that I had to make in order to be at the top academically. And I got there, but at the cost of my health for a 3-year stint. And so, trying to get back down to, somewhere between 140 and 145, 155, just taking the steps to get rid of cigarettes completely. So I've been smoke free since 2006, whatever the math is on that. Trying to eat something of like a meal, meals having like a vegetable in it, having some lean protein in there, having, some healthy fat in there. It was a year's process. This wasn't like an overnight, like, oh, I just did this 1, 2, or 3 things. It was, I went from eating basically from a gas station all of the processed food that you could possibly imagine and every like junk food that you could possibly imagine to, doing that. I mean, gosh, it took me at least 3 years to sort of get out of the mindset of like going to fast food for a meal. Just even breaking that habit took years. So I don't even know where I was going with this. I don't even know if I answered that question.
No, it's the firefighters and the people in public safety out there need to hear this because we are kind of, you may or may not know this, but we're kind of black and white. So we are either balls to the wall, 100% on the program, or we are so far off the wagon, you can't see the wagon trail.
Yeah.
And so helping them to live a little bit more in the gray and also realizing that it is a long process.
Yeah.
Do you, the process is different for everyone, but what did yours look like? Did it look like cleaning up the eating a little bit and exercising a little bit, or how did you do it?
Yeah, it was doing a little bit at a time, getting those small wins in. So I started doing, the only thing I did cold turkey was get rid of the cigarettes, and I know that there's also a process for that. There's medications for that. There's all sorts of different things that I have worked with patients on, all totally valid but for me, I was like, nah, I'm good. And it seemed to work out okay. With exercise, it was doing a 20-minute home DVD back in the day, a belly dancing DVD, because I did not want to show my face at the gym. I was way too embarrassed. And I did that for, I would say, about 6 months before I finally felt okay with being at I was in grad school at the time, the rec center in college. And that also started with, man, I would say 15 minutes worth of the elliptical machine, and really slowly building my way back up because my lungs were just so they were so from smoking, they would just, I couldn't, my cardiovascular, stamina was just not where it was. So, from there, and trying to make the gym a more kind of palatable habit. Back in the day, remember when there were like computer terminals at like cafes or clubs? And I remember just, I loved going. I used to blog, there was like Friendster, MySpace, LiveJournal. I would go and, as long as I got like in there and I did my 20 to 30 minutes of exercise, like I could go and just log into the computer terminal and, kind of go on LiveJournal and do my social media at the time. That was like my reward. So I kind of paired it with something I liked that wasn't, completely, unhealthy or like going to fast food, and with something that I was like, I still need to make this a habit. So pairing that up also really helped. And then also just sort of setting kind of long-term goals, like I'm going to do this half marathon, or I'm going to do this Tough Mudder event, or I'm going to do, whatever else kind of thing, just to kind of keep myself busy and motivated to do stuff. But it really was just small building here and there. And really, with the diet, it was, I'm going to start experimenting with a new vegetable from the farmer's market, which was across the street from my apartment. I'm going to go get a vegetable. I'm going to go try and figure out how to incorporate this into food and make it somewhat palatable. And I'm going to see what I think about this. And so,
That is such incredible advice. So I'm going to repeat this because, firefighters have squirrel brain, but Christle went from smoking, eating junk, and not exercising, and she transitioned to doing DVDs at home and eventually going to the gym and eating vegetables. But that was a few years. But now, fast forward to 2024, how long have you been powerlifting?
Oh gosh, I think I started the 5x5 strong lifts 5x5 in 2009, and I think I sort of I think my first powerlifting meet was in 2012 or 2013. And then my last meet was in 2018.
So a good almost decade of powerlifting. Yeah. And now I'm watching you on Instagram in your, what was that thing? Did it say butter on it?
Oh yeah, my butter rash guard.
Yes. Tell us about jujitsu, because I'm terrified of jujitsu. Tell us all about it.
Oh my gosh. Jujitsu, I wanted to take that up in med school, but I knew a very solid piece of advice that I had, somebody gave me when I was in grad school was, pick one hobby outside of work that you feel like you can commit to. And that's pretty much all you're going to be able to do in grad school. And I kind of took that with me with med school. And I was like, powerlifting's my thing because I don't have to set a schedule. Like I don't have to show up at any time. Like I can go to the gym anytime I want to. So jujitsu is this, it's, now I'm finally here. It's been 10 years. I still want to do it. So I started kind of training with my husband a couple years ago when we first moved out to Michigan. And it's, it feels like a sort of live game of chess where you're trying to get to the end and somebody's kind of blocking you. And I think it's a really nice way to kind of let out some aggression in a sort of systematic way, but also doesn't subject you to the risk of concussions, at least compared to other combat sports that have striking. Like there still is a risk that you can get a concussion, but it's much lower on that scale compared to things like boxing or, Muay Thai. So
oh my God. So recently a local police agency, they kind of did it wrong. They brought in jujitsu for their officers for 5 days in a row, and they ended up getting like several of their officers hurt. So we don't want to do that.
No.
Excuse me. So if we are looking as, let's say we're a firefighter, that we're interested in the sport, we want to get involved. How do we do that safely?
I think figuring out a gym that has the sort of kind of going to the gym and kind of figuring out what their style of and their approach to jujitsu, because like any other sport, some schools kind of just go with the flow. And other schools sort of take a systematic approach to stuff. And so, what I've really appreciated about I'm coached online by Josh Vogel, who is his gym. Him and his wife Angie are based out of Philadelphia. So, um, what I really was drawn to from them was how they systematically approached jujitsu. And, it's not about winning practice, it's really about drilling. And so I think that sometimes gets lost in the details, because I've been to other schools where, there's a lot less drilling and a lot more of like, we're going to do live roll where we try and like beat each other up. Um, and so, and you have to feel that out, right? And it really is like talking to the owner of the school, like, what's your approach? Like, what's your approach to injury? I actually had a really great conversation when I was out in Las Vegas. Simpson Go out in Vegas, we were talking about, really trying to make sure that the athletes, the jujitsu athletes, like, aren't really trying to push it so hard at, to the point where they're trying to kill each other and kill themselves in the process. Like, if you need to sit out this round to catch your breath, like, nobody's going to yell at you for it. Nobody's going to scream at you for it. You need to be proactive with that. But like having that and fostering that sort of environment that it's okay to take a rest, and really emphasizing things on, we're going to show you the moves and we're going to make sure that you get enough reps to get that practice in, is super important, because it's not like that everywhere.
And I think you just gave some really good advice in general, because a lot of times firefighters well, people in general, they'll try out a gym. I don't like it. They'll try out a physical therapist. I didn't like it. That didn't work. They'll try whatever, but you have to, it's like pants. You have to try on several pairs to see what fits.
Right.
Oh, so good. So good. All right. So I want to be respectful of your time. So I want to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
Is there any parting wisdom you could give to firefighters, first responders, or folks in general about their health and wellness from your perspective?
I feel like I think the biggest thing that I did not learn early on until RP was dieting isn't forever. Like, dieting is a specific phase, a period where you intentionally try and decrease your calories. And the goal is, there is an endpoint. There is an endpoint to it, because there is this thing called maintenance, where you are purposely pulled out of that caloric deficit, and that is where you live your life. That where you are not, your body weight is, stable. It's not, you don't get these like really wild swings in weight. And that weight loss and weight maintenance, you're going to have fluctuations, and that is okay. So I feel like being, when I was in the general public, like, that was a huge thing that like kind of just like, oh, really? Like, I thought I was going to have to diet forever. But if you actually take sort of a systematic approach to it, it really doesn't, you get in, get out, and get it done. So, and you're not going to be living your life in a hypocaloric phase. That's just a recipe for disaster. And I've done that the hard way. And I would hate for people to kind of think that like, that is where they have to be for the rest of their life. And it really like breaks my heart to see that, man, what I think is really that point to me now feels obvious at times and feel like I'm repeating myself, but I can't tell you how many people I've seen end up, in the social media space. Like, thank you for saying that, because like, I didn't know that either. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, just because you think it's obvious doesn't mean that, there could be somebody else out there that, is still trying to spin their heels, trying to diet forever. And I would hate for them to, still be on that bandwagon.
Oh, that was a good one. And if a firefighter or another listener wanted to get involved with RP programming or just check out the information, can you share the website?
Yeah, www.rprestrength.com. Also, YouTube has a whole host of free videos. If you scroll back, I mean, it's about 10 years worth of free content, long form, short form, some entertaining stuff, some educational stuff, a little mix of both. So if you check out the RP Strength YouTube channel, Google Mike Israetel, it should come up, and all of that information is out there for free. No need to pay for anything.
Fantastic. I love it. And then one final question. Always want to talk about dogs. Do you have a dog?
Oh, yes, I do. I do have an old English bulldog. Her name is Gwen. We love her to pieces. She is the light of our lives. So she's why we work so hard, so she can live her spoiled life.
You're working hard to pay for Gwen's treats. I got you.
Yes.
Please send me via message a picture of Gwen. I have to see her.
Oh my God. Yes, I will do. Oh my gosh.
Well, it has been my great pleasure to talk to you today. Sorry about the little the glitches that we had, but my listeners are going to absolutely love this conversation. And I think with that, we can probably drop the mic. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
AZ and Dr. Christle are officially out.